Alright. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today? I myself am doing well, trying out another new format for these videos. If you have a favorite format, or if you would like me to keep on trying different ones, let me know in the comment section down below. As well, if you're new to the channel, please leave a comment and feel free to leave a comment and let me know as well. And if you enjoy my video, go ahead, leave a like, and maybe even subscribe. There's daily videos going on here on this channel, at least for the most part. My favorite podcast, EFAP, sometimes gets in the way of me doing a video, so there's that. Otherwise, I thought it would be fun to check out the Rolling Stones review of Space Force, a new Netflix comedy series that apparently has a failure to launch. Well, Space Force Netflix comedy suffers failure to launch in this new series based on President Trump's proposed interstellar military branch, which is actually a misconception because if an military branch was made as a space force, it wouldn't be to protect us from outside threats. It would be to control the world below the space force. So imagine being able to launch a military attack from space itself and to essentially hover over everybody with that type of weaponry above their heads. I think it would essentially be the next step in military advancement because it's just the next frontier, the next way to control people, essentially. Because as soon as we get up there, people will be claiming actual space as their space. So could you imagine a satellite just hovering over your country, and that satellite filled with weaponry is owned by a country you hate? That's the type of idea that a space force, I think, would actually come to be. Putting that aside, though, this mediocre comedy, and it looks horribly mediocre, especially if you watch the trailers. I don't know what they were thinking. It was just a funny name, and that's essentially what they rolled with. They're like, we have this funny name, let's give it to a funny person, because I do believe Steve Carell is a funny person, and they tried to roll with it, and unfortunately, we just got The Office light. Steve Carell tries to recapture those feelings of dim-witted anti-heroism that Michael Scott had in The Office, and unfortunately it just doesn't work. Yeah, it's truly shows that comedy is dying in the mainstream media because they just won't allow themselves to really go with things or expand upon it, be abrasive and be ignorant and things of that nature. This show is a prime example of that. Even in this review, it shows that these type of ideas don't have a chance. So let's go through it. Now that it's one of the most beloved comedies on streaming across multiple generations, it can be hard to remember that The Office was not well received when it debuted on NBC in the spring of 2005. It's not just the mockumentary format was relatively new to American TV, but that the show's original concept of Michael Scott was far more malevolent and abrasive than he would become. In particular, the scene in the pilot episode, which was beat for beat a remake of the premiere of the British original from Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. And keep in mind that the show was made with a British audience in mind, and the way to adapt it because wasn't to do just a straight remake, because American people do like it when things are a little more cartoony in their comedy. Even the later seasons of The Office prove that things got way more. I hate to use the same word ago. Outlandish. Things often got crazy very quickly, and that would work for an American audience for sure. But the original concept was, again, made for a UK audience in mind. In the original pilot episode of the British comedy, just like it is in the American version, where Michael pretends to fire Pam as a prank, made him seem like an outright villain rather than a comic anti-hero. The abbreviated first season featured several standout episodes, but it's hard to imagine the take on Michael lasting long enough to make the series a pop cultural touchstone in America. They forget that, again, in the UK, the original version of The Office did fine, but it just wasn't the vision that American executives would have for it. Thankfully, Greg Daniels, among the most talented and most influential comedy minds of the last 30 years, is the one who had the unenviable task of translating Gervais and Merchant's work. Daniels wrote some of the best episodes. He co-created the wonderful, warm, prescient animated comedy King of the Hill, and he would later co-create the incredible Parks and Recreation. He's not dumb is the point, and by the time the second season of The Office began, he figured out that what worked for Gervais as David Brent would not work for Steve Carell as Michael. He toned down the most awful aspects of Michael's behavior and tweaked his motivation. Where David craves attention, Michael is desperate for a family, enough to make him endearingly awful rather than off-puttingly awful. And while Carell translates into Space Force Michael Scott type of persona, things are different, because in the new series he has a wife, Maggie, and is more aggressive and confident than Michael ever was. He's a plausibly orthodox military man. When Maggie complains that he's too rigid in his thinking, he insists, "I can be flexible if I'm ordered to be." So, sounds like he is just complaining that Mark is too much of an aggressive, confident type, rather than Michael, who was weak, and people identify with weak characters more often than they identify with someone abrasive and strong. So, I can see the disconnect that this person's getting, although it is an interesting idea of basically approaching the same character from a different angle, I would say. But they ramp things up to 11 a little too far, I would say. Mark has signs of destructive behavior and displaying acts that are basically him stomping his feet ground and not listening to anybody. So that makes it hard for people to watch, that he's just too arrogant and prideful to take any advice from anybody. And essentially, it's all just masculine traits ramped up to 11 and in their worst possible forms. But this person doesn't identify any of that, and why he feels so disgusted by these types of actions. And again, it's not fun to watch even in real life. Someone just put their fingers in their ears and start yelling, no, 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 I won't listen to you, and things of that nature. So that's the major problem. This show is character focused and focusing on a character who is just too prideful and too strong, to the point where it's aggravating. Going through the rest of the article, it does show that he does get toned down in the later half of the season, but it probably comes far too late, essentially. So if you like strong characters, maybe you should give this a chance. He does get toned down later, so he does become more empathetic. So if you have a Netflix account, I suppose it's not really worth checking out anyways. But yeah, it was just a series based off a name that couldn't really carry it anywhere. People, I guess it's a funny idea, but it's only really a memeable idea, so it wasn't ever gonna go far, I think, myself. Anyways, that about does it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, go ahead, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.